All right, let's jump right in. We're going to be talking about one of the biggest and honestly sneakiest threats that developers and security folks are dealing with right now. Forget what you think you know, because this is about a massive wave of compromised credentials that makes a lot of our standard security look, well, pretty useless. This isn't just another data breach. It's what happens when attackers take all the old data breaches and turn them into a weapon.
And here is the scale we're talking about. I mean, just look at that number. It's almost 2 billion unique email addresses. This whole data set just got loaded into Have I Been Pawned. But here's the really important part. This is not a new breach from one company. Nope. This is what's called a combo list. It's a giant collection that hackers have built by scraping together username and password pairs from thousands of different breaches over the years. So this isn't just a list, it's a ready-to-use arsenal aimed at pretty much every login page on the internet.
So how do they actually use a list this massive? The main attack is something called credential stuffing. And look, it's really easy to mix this up with a brute force attack, but they couldn't be more different. Think of it this way. A brute force attack is loud and obvious. It's like someone standing at your front door trying every single key on a giant keychain one after another. It's going to set off alarms. Credential stuffing, though, it's quiet. The attacker already has a key, your stolen password, that they know works for some other door. They just walk up to your site and try it once. Since it's just a single login attempt, it looks like normal traffic and just flies right under the radar.
So what does this look like in the real world? How does an attacker actually pull this off? It's pretty much a 4-step playbook. First, they get their hands on one of these huge combo lists from the dark web. Second, and this is key, they're not doing this by hand. They're using powerful bot tools, things like OpenBullet, that can fire off millions of login attempts an hour. Third, to stay hidden, they funnel all this traffic through massive proxy networks. This makes it look like the login attempts are coming from thousands of different people all over the globe. And finally, they just point this automated storm at your login page and wait for the successful hits to roll in.
And you know, the really wild part is just how good these bots have gotten at hiding. Attackers now use residential proxy networks, which means their malicious traffic is coming from the IP address of a normal home internet connection, making it almost impossible to distinguish from a real user. They use headless browsers that perfectly simulate a human clicking and typing on your site, which bypasses a lot of simple bot checks. They can even plug into services that solve CAPTCHAs for them in real time. And if they want to be extra sneaky, they'll do what's called a low and slow attack, spreading out the login attempts over days or weeks so they never trip any alarms.
So with an army of super smart bots coming at you, how in the world do you fight back? Well, you have to get smarter than the bots. Your first line of defense has to be intelligent bot management. This is way beyond just blocking an IP address. We're talking about deep behavioral analysis. You have to ask, how is this user actually interacting with the site? Does their mouse move in a smooth, human-like curve, or does it just teleport from point A to point B? Is their typing speed natural, or is it inhumanly perfect? These are the little tells that give the game away. You combine that with things like device fingerprinting and running invisible challenges in the background, and suddenly the bots start to stand out.
Okay, so let's imagine the worst happens. An attacker gets past your defenses and manages to steal a copy of your user database. This is where strong, slow password hashing becomes your last best hope. See, when an attacker is trying to log in online, you can rate limit them. But once they have your database of password hashes, they're offline. They can use specialized hardware to guess billions of passwords a second. But if you use a modern, deliberately slow algorithm like Argon 2, you make every single one of those guesses incredibly expensive and time-consuming. You make it so computationally difficult to crack the passwords that it's just not worth it for them. You're basically destroying the business case for the attack.
And that brings us to the real game changer, the ultimate backstop. Seriously, if you remember only one thing from our time together, make it this: enforce multi-factor authentication. It is, without a doubt, the single most effective way to stop credential stuffing dead in its tracks. Why? Because it doesn't matter if the attacker has the right username and the right password. It's totally useless to them without that second piece of the puzzle. That code from your phone, that tap on a hardware key. MFA effectively makes those giant lists of stolen credentials worthless. All right, so let's put this all together into a quick checklist you can actually use. First, and this should be no surprise, enforce MFA for everyone, no excuses. Second, use smart adaptive rate limiting that can look beyond just a simple IP address. Third, actually monitor your logs for the signs of these attacks, spikes in failed logins, traffic from weird places. Fourth, basics still matter. Sanitize your inputs. Fifth, please, educate your users. Tell them why reusing passwords is a terrible idea.
And finally, number 6, use a pwned password service to stop people from picking a password that's already on one of those hacker combo lists.
So I want to leave you with this one question, because it really gets to the core of this whole problem. Your system gets a login attempt, the username is correct, the password is correct, everything looks perfect. So, how do you know? How do you tell the difference between one of your actual users and an attacker who's just walked in through the front door using their key? That's the challenge we're all facing, and it's one that you can't solve with old-school thinking.